Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. Here's an instantly recognizable image. We all know this as our home, the Earth. And this is a sign of our intelligence, being able to perceive the Earth as a globe, because we've never actually seen it with our own eyes in this way. But we're smart enough to be able to perceive it that way. And this is obviously helped by the fact that we are shown this image since we are kids, since going into the classroom, it's on TV, we see it everywhere. So of course it becomes instantly recognizable, even though none of us have ever actually been able to confirm this for ourselves. So this is obviously an evolutionary step that we've taken in order to be able to have the smarts to perceive it in this way. And of course, it would be ridiculous and stupid to question whether this is in fact true. I mean, when we were kids, we all had a little bit of a laugh about being on the top or on the bottom, and we even call Australia down under, and we find it kind of funny that we don't fall off the bottom of this globe, because we know that based on our real experience that this is actually physically impossible. So of course, you have to be really smart and clever in order to have these mathematical formula and models that allow us to perceive and believe what would otherwise be physically impossible, to live on the outside of this sphere and have all this water on the outside flowing and not flowing. And it's really quite incredible how clever we are to be able to perceive this without ever actually seeing it for ourselves. But let's have a look at how it is possible for us to be this clever and be able to perceive this objective point of view based on our subjective experience. So we have to really be quite smart in order to discern between the two, the subjective reality that we experience with our eyes and our senses, and the objective reality that we must only be able to perceive and believe. So I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible. I know it's going to be a bit of a strain for the smart people who already completely understand and get how it's possible to believe that we live on a globe, and of course, you'd be stupid to think otherwise, but bear with me. So we have these two lines here, and we can just look at them, and we can tell with our eyes that they are two horizontal, flat, level, parallel lines. And if you wanted to, you could go and confirm what you see here as being true. You could take a screenshot and you could measure the distance between the two lines here on the left and the right, and you would see that they are in fact parallel. You could get a ruler or a spirit level even, and you could put it across here, and you would see that they are in fact horizontal, they are level. Your eyes are not deceiving you. They've done a very good job of telling you what you see in front of you, and this can be confirmed by measuring it. So that's all good. This would work, and we would be telling the truth if we were to say that these lines are flat, level, parallel, horizontal. All these words, they work fine, and we can all pretty much agree that that's what we see here. So let's put a person here. So now all of a sudden we have this mixture of the objective view that we have looking at this image on the screen of two horizontal lines, and we have this person here who will have their own subjective view of these parallel lines. So of course their view is going to be different. And this is where we have to really try to start using our smarts to be able to perceive the difference here. And of course, it is quite clever of us if we can imagine ourselves outside of what this person is looking at. So this could be someone else, or it could be you. And then we could just look at what that person sees and experiences compared to what we see in our objective view of this situation. So of course for us these lines are horizontal, but for the person here, they might have a surface that is going out in front of them and a ceiling, or it could be as high or as low as you like, and that would be going off into the distance. But of course that person, it would look different for that person. But this person could, for example, confirm with their own measurements and observations what they are seeing. For example, they themselves could measure the height here, perhaps. Okay, they could walk along here and of course get to the other end, and they would see that nothing has changed. They are still on a horizontal level. The distance from their head to the ceiling will have not changed. So they can confirm that they are experiencing the same thing that we see. A flat surface and a flat parallel level ceiling. This can all be confirmed by the person. Now, for example, they might carry a spirit level along with them, and they would see that the spirit level is the same on the left-hand side as it is on the right-hand side. So, they would be able to see that it is level. So that's just one way you could confirm this. But of course, to that observer, these green lines are how the surface and the ceiling will appear in their eyes. So now we have an objective view of this scene that includes the subjective view of the observer that they will see in their eyes. They will see the ceiling and the floor appearing to converge at what would be pretty much their eye level. And of course, it is from personal experience and being able to survive by one's wits and one's senses that would allow this person to look along those parallel lines, see that they appear to converge, but know that they are not actually converging. They know that parallel lines never actually meet. They only appear to meet because that is perspective. That's what gives us this depth of field. It allows us to judge distances, and we can all be very good at that. As we saw just now, we could see for ourselves that these lines were parallel, and for the observer, even though those lines will appear to converge, they will instinctively know that those lines are still parallel, and they would be able to judge if the floor or the ceiling was out of whack or something like that. So this is hopefully a really good example of how the difference between objective and subjective reality. And let's just take this a little step further. Okay, I know it's very simple, but unfortunately we've got to do this because a lot of people have difficulty grasping this. I know for the smart people who have this complete faith that we live on a globe, there should be no need to do this, but apparently it just seems to be important. So let's do this. Let's put a sun up here. So this blue line at the top here doesn't have to be a ceiling anymore. It just has to be a parallel line that the sun travels along at. And here is the flat surface. So we could call this the flat surface of the Earth. You know, it doesn't, even though we're on a globe, it's locally flat, isn't it? So let's just keep it like that for now, without having to worry about curvature and things like that. And you'll often hear people say something like, well, the sun can't be in two places at once, can it? And this is something that ignores this difference between the subjective and objective view that we can have or we can perceive. Because obviously we can never really see a scenario like this where we can see someone looking at the sun and see that person and the sun ourselves from a completely different objective view, such as this. So we're already having to use our perception. We're already having to make that leap. But of course, as we've seen just now, for this person here, in their subjective reality, this line here, this parallel line or horizontal line that's parallel to the surface, will appear to converge. So actually, they won't see the sun as being in the same place that we see it. They will see it there. So now, all of a sudden, by being able to appreciate that there is the subjective view of the observer and our objective view of that observer's situation, we can now say that yes, the sun will appear in two places at once. It works fine because we're actually taking into consideration both points of view, the subjective and objective. Of course, flat earthers are often accused of not being able to think in 3D. You don't have to necessarily think in 3D, but you do have to be able to take two views into consideration at the same time, the subjective and objective view, and combine them. And so when we take this observer's perspective and we know that he or she will see a sun that appears closer to their own horizon, then we do have a sun that is objectively here, traveling along at a consistent height above this flat surface, doesn't have to change direction, the surface doesn't have to move, the surface doesn't have to be curved, the surface remains flat. But of course the distance at which the sun is from the observer will make a difference to what they see. So there you go, the sun can be in two places at the same time. So we can see from this that if the sun moved off into the distance here, continuing to have a consistent height above the surface of this flat earth, then for the observer, the sun would continue to travel along this converging parallel line and eventually get to a point where it would appear to this observer that the sun is cut off by the surface. And so it really is as simple as that. There's no need to be on a curved and moving surface. The sun moves away from the observer and it stays at the same height, yet for that observer and their subjective view of the sun has gone beyond their line of sight. There is nothing to see anymore because everything has converged right here. It's just beyond their subjective view. But of course, for us, in this objective view, we can see that the sun is still there. But for this person, the sun's gone. Yeah? So that's something to consider if you're one of those people that is smart enough to perceive the objective view of you being on a globe, even though you've never seen it for yourself, and you need some little help breaking away from that very rigid, set way of thinking about it, because it's quite possible, if you're of a flexible and open mind, to be able to perceive it this way. And just in the same way that nobody can show you a full view of the globe Earth, a flat earther cannot show you a full view of the flat Earth. But we can perceive it if we allow ourselves to do so. And of course, another problem that people have when it comes to discussing the differences between this subjective and objective view is this whole idea of level. Now, we agreed early on that these lines are parallel, horizontal, flat, straight, level, and we can go ahead and we can measure the difference. Again, this chap here could take a spirit level, or he could measure the difference in height along these lines, and nothing would change because he or she is on a level surface, and whatever is above that person is also at a consistent height above the surface. There is nothing changes. So of course, if we were to introduce something like this, a curved surface, and put our person on the top of this curved surface, we start to get some conflicts, and this is where cognitive dissonance can kick in and really create some problems. And this is where it's very difficult to continue a line of thought and perception with these two opposing views, because as we can see here, from our objective point of view, or reference frame if you like, we have the blue surface which carries on in a straight line, and we have the red surface which is curving away from the observer. Now, if we are to perceive ourselves as living on the outside of a spherical Earth, then it doesn't matter where we are on that Earth, we are really essentially always on top. So the surface is always curving away from us. So we then get into the realm of not only observations, but also the realm of physics, natural physics, the natural physics of our surroundings. And of course, as we said just now, this person could take a spirit level, or even the ball, or some water. Just get some water and pour it on the floor, and this would tell that person whether the floor is level or curving away from them, because of course water always flows downhill or down a curve, or even we could say to a lower elevation. And so of course, with this person here being on top of this curved surface, then everything beyond that person is of a lower elevation. Let's just take away the parallel lines here, yeah? So of course, in the realms of our physical reality, if we're looking at this scenario, we know that if this person dropped a ball or dropped some water, again, you can scale this up and down as much as you like. The physics doesn't change. We are faced with a problem that, the water should flow away from this individual on top of the globe, because everywhere beyond that person is going to be a lower elevation. And of course, we all know that we're told that the horizon is curvature. Now, one of the reasons we get slightly confused about that is because of these converging lines. Because remember, let me just try and move those a bit. Okay. Remember, what we have here is our sight tells us that a flat surface is flat because it actually appears to rise up and will converge. So what we have here is this person looking across a level surface and that surface appearing to rise up, yet we are to perceive and believe that this person is on a surface that's curving away from them. And so this is why sometimes people are kind of led to believe that when we're on a globe Earth, we are looking into this bulge of curvature. And this is why you have so many disagreements and arguments about what eye level is. Because for this globe Earth scenario, the height and the distance and the angle at which the person sees the horizon is very, very important. Because we're in a situation where we have taken this our senses and what we see in our subjective reality, a convergence of parallel lines, or a level surface and a level sky. And now this has had to be translated into this perception, this objective perception that we are in fact on a globe, not a flat surface as we see it. So we start to get confusion about the words. We can't use the words level or flat or parallel without entering some kind of realm of confusion where we have to start changing the meanings of the words in order to perceive that we live on a globe. So just bring back the parallel lines here. All right, again, we know that looking across a level surface gives us this rising up of the surface in our subjective view. But we are told to convert this subjective view into an objective view that doesn't make sense to our eyes, unless we are to believe that we have some kind of bulge of curvature rising up in front of us, or that we cannot trust our senses and that we must look up or down to a horizon, when in fact we can see that what happens is when we look straight ahead, it is our eyes that create the horizon. And you'll even get people claiming that there would be no horizon if the earth was flat. And this is just an attempt to escape the inevitable cognitive dissonance that is going to come about when you start demanding to confirm what level actually is, and demand that there is some kind of physical, measurable, demonstrable proof of this objective perception that we live on a globe rather than a level plane as we see it. So let's just go back to, what would happen? What would happen if we had a spirit level, and usually if we went off in this linear direction, a horizontal line, then that should stay level. But of course, if we are to perceive and believe that we live on a globe, then we have to say that, oh, well, this person goes down here. We have to turn this person, all right. Okay, so for this person now, we have to say that level is not the same as the level of these blue lines anymore. Let's take away the converging lines. Okay. Just now, on the flat surface, everything was fine. Everything was level. But for this person who's gone down an imaginary curve, we have to change the meaning of level. And all of a sudden, level has to become perpendicular to the vertical towards the center of this imagined spherical Earth. And so then we got this juxtaposition. We've got this real issue now with defining the physical properties of level or even horizontal. So let's just have a look at it in this way. Let's go back to our globe. And I'm really hoping for a concise and clear answer from all those smart chaps out there who just know that we're on a globe and are able to perceive it, because that's of course how we've been taught all our lives. And what we'll do is we've got a straight line here, all right, and a curved line here. So the straight line, the straight line just goes off on a horizontal level from our objective view of the Earth. There is no denying that this line here, this blue line, is level. It's flat, it's horizontal, just like the blue lines we saw just now. There is no deception going on here with this idea that this line is horizontal and level. But what happens when we follow a curved path? It's a really simple question. Which of these lines is level in this objective view of the Earth? Or even for the subjective view of the person on the Earth? This is level and this is level, but our common sense tells us that you cannot have two definitions of level. So which one are we going to use? And at what point do we change? Do we switch from this subjective view to an objective view? At which point does the physics change? At which point does water or a ball or whatever not flow on this flat surface or flat level, yet flow down a curve, yet in this suddenly we have this objective view and water is not flowing down a curve? At what point does the physics change? Now again, if we're on the top of this Earth, we are at a higher elevation than someone down here. And we know that water will flow down to a lower elevation. So it can be a curve or a hill or a higher or lower elevation, and water will flow. That's the physical properties of water. So we really have this problem here of, one is of perception that doesn't fit with reality and doesn't fit with what should be the objective view that we have, and it doesn't work in terms of physics. So there has to be a point at which level changes. All right, so I'm looking forward to some brilliant technical, physical, demonstrable proof in the way of answers from all these smart people who have the cognitive ability to perceive ourselves as being on a globe and also bring the proof to the table. Thank you very much. Click subscribe and the bell icon if you'd like to receive notifications of new videos from Phuket Word.